Welcome to the all-new Hoop Nova, your ultimate source for everything basketball.
A secret training camp in Port Melbourne has brought together the biggest names in Australian basketball, among them Ben Simmons.
The biggest waste of talent we have seen in NBA history.
What do you have to lose? He comes in and he sucks and you cut him? So what?
I don't see the upside because he's just going to dip.
Ready to return to the NBA next year?
Man, I'm ready to have a great day today with the guys, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
It's a long way to fly just to not do it, man.
On Wednesday morning, a Ben Simmons workout video suddenly went viral. And honestly, it looked like something we've seen 100 times before. Simmons was alone at a gym, knocking down jumper after jumper with a smooth release and looking surprisingly comfortable from three. Nobody was guarding him, there was no pressure, and it was just another summer workout clip. If you followed the Ben Simmons story over the last few years, you already know what usually happens next. Fans immediately start calling it propaganda, because every summer brings the same cycle: workout videos, comeback rumors, reports about how healthy Simmons looks. And then the season arrives and everything changes. At this point, NBA fans can practically predict the entire storyline. But here's the problem with simply laughing this one off. Something has actually changed this time. Over the last 10 days, 3 things happened that we have never seen together in the Ben Simmons saga. First, the paperwork changed. Second, an actual offer reportedly landed on the table. And third, Simmons traveled nearly 10,000 miles to make a statement about where his career is heading. That doesn't mean he's suddenly becoming an all-star again, and it definitely doesn't mean one workout video proves anything. But it does mean this situation deserves more attention than another simple Ben Simmons is shooting threes again joke. To understand why, you have to look at what has happened over the last several summers. Simmons has repeatedly entered the offseason with optimism surrounding his comeback. We've seen the gym clips, the training videos, the healthy updates, and the promises that this could finally be the year everything comes together. Then October arrives, expectations rise, and eventually the story starts falling apart again. But this time, the conversation around Simmons is different because the plan may finally involve something he has resisted for years: changing his role completely. Instead of trying to prove that he is still the same point guard who once looked like one of the most unique young players in basketball, the idea now is to turn him into something completely different: a versatile big who can defend multiple positions, handle the ball, push the pace, make plays, and finisher on the rim. And that is where the $30 million conversation becomes extremely interesting. Think about what Simmons could offer if he completely accepted that role. He is still an elite physical athlete when healthy. He can defend guards, wings, and bigger players. He can grab a rebound and immediately start the fast break. He has the passing ability to create offense from the middle of the floor, something most traditional centers simply cannot do. The talent was never really the biggest question with Simmons. The biggest question has always been whether he is willing to stop chasing the player he used to be and become something new. Because making jumpers in an empty gym is one thing, doing it against NBA defenders when the game is tied in the fourth quarter is something completely different. A workout video can create millions of views and get everyone talking, but only actual production can change the way teams view you. That's why this story is so fascinating. Maybe this is just another August hype cycle. Maybe the same story is about to repeat itself for another year. But there are real developments happening behind the scenes that make this version different from the previous ones. The footage looks familiar. The jokes are familiar. The skepticism is familiar. But underneath all of that, Ben Simmons may finally be making the one adjustment that could determine whether his NBA career continues or completely disappears. Accepting that he doesn't need to be the old Ben Simmons anymore. He just needs to become a useful one. For years, the biggest problem with Ben Simmons wasn't his talent. It was the gap between what he believed he was worth and what NBA teams were actually willing to offer. But on August 10th, something happened that could completely change the way we look at his comeback. ESPN and NBA insider Mark Spears reported that several teams had expressed interest in Simmons, including a Western Conference team that had already offered him a training camp invitation. And then came the part nobody expected: Ben Simmons is reportedly open to signing a veteran minimum contract. That one sentence is massive because the word minimum has been at the center of this entire saga. Remember the Knicks situation? New York reportedly showed interest, But the veteran minimum wasn't enough for Simmons, and that situation eventually fell apart so badly that his agent walked away. 4 years, the message seemed clear. Ben Simmons believed he was worth more than the lowest possible NBA contract. But now, his camp is publicly signaling that the minimum is acceptable. That is a major shift. After years of standing firm, Simmons may finally be accepting the reality of where his career currently stands. And honestly, that could be the smartest decision he has made in years. Think about the timing. In my previous video, I predicted that Rich Paul would eventually get Simmons a legitimate training camp opportunity, with minimum money that could become partially guaranteed. Now, just weeks later, we reportedly have exactly that, a non-guaranteed training camp offer from a Western Conference team, with several other teams showing interest. That doesn't mean Simmons has made an NBA roster yet, but it proves the strategy is working. His camp is lowering the financial risk for teams across the league. Instead of asking a franchise to make a massive investment in a player with plenty of uncertainty, the message is simple: give him a chance, bring him to camp, and see what he can actually do. That is smart representation. But we also need to pump the brakes. Being open to a minimum contract is not the same thing as signing one. An offer is not a roster spot, and a training camp invitation is not guaranteed money. The Knicks situation proved there can be a massive difference between a Ben Simmons conversation and an actual Ben Simmons contract. So the real test is whether this new attitude survives when the pen is actually sitting on the table. And that brings us to the most convincing evidence that something might genuinely be different this time: Ben Simmons himself. While everyone online was talking about his workout videos, Simmons was on the other side of the world in Melbourne, Australia. According to ESPN, he participated without restrictions in a private mini-camp connected to the Australian national team, working alongside legitimate NBA talent like Josh Giddey, Dyson Daniels, Patty Mills, and Jock Landale. But one detail stands out more than everything else. Simmons reportedly paid his own way to get there. No massive appearance fee, no guaranteed contract waiting for him. He simply got on a plane and traveled thousands of miles to compete against high-level players with something to prove. After earning roughly $200 million throughout his career, Ben Simmons didn't need to make that trip. He chose to. And maybe that tells us more about this comeback than any workout video ever could. The shots are nice, the reports are encouraging, and the interest from teams is real. But if Simmons is finally willing to accept a smaller role, smaller money, and do whatever it takes to get back on an NBA floor, then this might be the first Ben Simmons comeback story that actually deserves our attention. Ben Simmons has made plenty of promises about his comeback over the years, but this time, his actions might be saying more than his words. When Channel 9 asked Simmons why he traveled all the way to Australia, his answer was surprisingly simple. He wants to play for the Boomers again. And then he said something that might be the most honest statement of his entire comeback: it's a long way to fly just to not do it. That sentence perfectly explains why this trip matters. Simmons didn't just post another workout clip from a private gym. He got on a plane and traveled thousands of miles because he actually wants to compete for Australia again. And his teammates seem to believe he can do it. Josh Giddey said he expects Simmons to return to the NBA next season and believes that's where he deserves to be. Dyson Daniels went even further, essentially saying that if Simmons makes himself available, he could have a place on the national team. His godfather, David Patrick, who is involved with the Australian program, also believes Simmons has regained his athleticism. The long-term goal is reportedly the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. But there's one massive problem. Ben Simmons has made this exact promise before. He hasn't played for Australia since 2013, when he was only 17 years old. In 2019, shortly after signing his massive extension with Philadelphia, Simmons withdrew from the World Cup squad while saying Tokyo 2020 was still part of his plan. He never played in Tokyo. Then in 2023, Simmons once again talked about representing Australia, this time targeting the 2024 Paris Olympics. But when the Olympic roster was announced, his name wasn't there. So now, Los Angeles 2028 becomes another Olympic promise. That history is exactly why the plane ticket matters so much. Promises are easy. Actually showing up is different. Simmons has finally put himself in the room and surrounded himself with NBA-level competition. That doesn't guarantee anything, but it is real evidence of a different mindset. Meanwhile, another rumor refuses to disappear: the possibility of Simmons returning to Philadelphia. A Spanish report recently claimed that the 76ers could consider Simmons for their final roster spot on a one-year minimum contract. The logic is obvious: Philadelphia could use help in the front court. Simmons has connections to the organization, and there are strong relationships between his camp and people around the team. But we need to be careful here. No major NBA insider has confirmed the report, so right now it should be treated as speculation, not an imminent transaction. Still, the trajectory is interesting. A few weeks ago, Simmons returning to Philadelphia was simply a theoretical fit. Now there are overseas reports connecting the two sides. The roster still has a potential opening, and Simmons is publicly signaling that he is willing to accept a minimum deal. Until a trusted NBA insider confirms it, it remains smoke. But there is an awful lot of smoke surrounding Ben Simmons and Philadelphia right now, and when the same names keep appearing in the same conversation, it becomes harder to completely ignore. Now we have to talk about Wednesday's workout clips, because this is where the entire Ben Simmons story comes together. On one side, you have footage that looks almost identical to what we saw in 2021, 2023, 2024, and 2025. Empty gym, smooth jumper, nobody guarding him. Simmons knocking down shots like he's about to become Steph Curry. And honestly, fans have every right to be skeptical. If you judge this comeback entirely by the workout video, you would have to say nothing has changed. It's the same formula we've watched for years. But there is one massive difference this time, and it has nothing to do with the basketball footage. It's the paperwork. For the first time in years, Simmons' camp is publicly saying that a veteran minimum contract is acceptable. For the first time, there is reportedly a non-guaranteed training camp offer actually sitting on the table. And for the first time, Simmons personally traveled across the world to compete against NBA players in front of national team coaches. Those things simply didn't exist in the previous versions of this story. So yes, the workout clip is a rerun, but the circumstances surrounding it are completely new. And that brings us to the biggest question: which version of Ben Simmons do you believe? Do you trust the footage, or do you trust the actions happening behind the scenes? Because the footage has fooled us for years, this time, there is finally something tangible to judge. My take is simple: the biggest question surrounding Simmons has officially changed. For years, the question was whether any NBA team would even call him. That question is now dead. Somebody called. The new question is much harder: can Ben Simmons actually survive an NBA training camp? A non-guaranteed deal means there are no promises. He could spend 5 weeks grinding through practices, taking contact, competing every day, and then still get cut before opening night with the team owing him very little. That is the real version of the role Rich Paul is reportedly trying to sell. Forget the glamorous $30 million potential. Forget the superstar expectations. This is about accepting a smaller role and fighting for a roster spot. Personally, I believe Simmons will make it to training camp. The offer reportedly exists, the financial expectations are finally reasonable, and his representation clearly sees an opportunity. But making the camp is only step one. The real test comes when he has to compete for minutes against younger players who have nothing to lose. Can he stay healthy? Can he accept a backup role? Can he defend, rebound, pass, and contribute without demanding the offense run through him? That's what we need to find out. And after watching this story repeat itself for years, I can honestly say something I rarely say about Ben Simmons: I don't know how this ends. And strangely enough, that uncertainty might be the most positive development in his entire comeback story.